Hi, Carrie. Here we are again.
Yes.
I never know what to call you, actually. I mean, we know each other so well.
Then you can just
Do I call you
Carrie.
Mrs. Lamb?
No,
or
just call me Carrie.
just Carrie? Not the Chief Lamb? No? Anything goes, right? All right. Well, they've asked us to talk about something which is kind of an elusive topic, I suppose. And that's how do we mix the whole concept of innovation with the concept of politics? To me, Carrie, innovation itself is a political process, right? Because you have to get people on board. If you want it to succeed, you have to, you have to get allies, and you have to work together. The whole thing is a political process. So when you see the title that they've assigned us today, our homework for today, Can Politics Lead Innovation? What comes to mind?
Well, let me first welcome the RISE conference to Hong Kong for the first time, and also welcome 15,000 participants from over 100 countries to Hong Kong. And I hope you have a wonderful 4-day RISE conference in Hong Kong and come back more often in future years. I have not actually been shown the title of our conversation, what is politics lead innovation. But I want to share with you that of course, I'm now a politician and have been a public official for close to 40 years. So if you ask me, I think the role of politics in innovation is to provide the leadership. Because it's very easy to talk about you want to do technology innovation in Hong Kong, but you need leadership in order to guide the development of innovation and technology in Hong Kong. So since I took office on the 1st of July last year, I hoped I have provided the needed leadership for Hong Kong's innovation and technology development, and also put in the money, because money is very important, and I regard that money as investment. So my government has already put in 78 billion Hong Kong dollars, which is roughly 10 billion US dollars in the last year or so, to promote various aspects of innovation and technology. So leadership is very important. The other thing is politics is always about compromising, right? Because politics is an art, not an exact science. So day in, day out, we need to make compromises in politics. But I would say that in technology, you should not make compromises. You should go for what you think is the best in terms of your inventions, discovery, growing your business. Don't settle for the mediocre and go for the best. So that's something very different from politics.
So yeah, it's very different in the sense that you shoot super high in technology. You're not afraid of failure, whereas politics, governing, you do it more conservatively, right? Because you don't have that wiggle room to make mistakes, in the political process that the innovative process presents to you. I mean, you mentioned money. Yeah. You mentioned money. We are in an enviable position. I've been here almost 30 years. I've called Hong Kong home for nearly 30 years. And for the vast majority of those years, we've run surplus after surplus after surplus. Yeah. So, a lot of countries, a lot of jurisdictions would love to be in our position. In your mind, what can we do better other than just apportion money and say, we're going to dedicate X number of dollars, X billion dollars, X hundreds of millions of dollars to this industry and that industry on a yearly basis every time it comes to budget time?
Well, as I said, and as Bernie acknowledged, some money, some investment is essential, but you can't just do it with money. So I have laid out what I call an 8-pronged strategy last year. But in short, we need to create an environment which is conducive to the development of innovation and technology in Hong Kong. So, for example, we need to have an environment which young people are very enthusiastic about science and discovery. We need to have an environment which the government is more friendly in providing facilitation, like the sharing of big data, like the government procurement, and also in updating some obsolete legislation to facilitate the application of technology. And we also need more talents. So we need to provide more maybe up to standard or up to date immigration policy to make it easier for the admission of tech talents in Hong Kong. I'm happy to say that we have done in all these aspects. We could do more, but we have started on each and every of these aspects, which will create a better ecosystem in Hong Kong, an environment that is conducive to growing the innovation and technology sector.
Carrie, I'm going to get very granular here just for a second and just use some analogies, because I think that storytelling and real life, relating of what people tell me when they come to Hong Kong tells us a lot about, the optics with which we, present ourselves to the rest of the world. You won't believe what people complain to me most about when it comes to Hong Kong. It's not about convenience. It's not about getting to Hong Kong. It's not about choice. It's about things as seemingly mundane as, I can't believe I had to pay for a taxi with cash. I haven't had to do that in a long time. This is the first country in Asia I visited where I had to do that. Why are some institutions in Hong Kong so difficult to overcome and to update? Things like taxi licensing schemes. We've talked about this for years and years.
No, Bernie, I like your description of the optic is very important. If we said that we aspire to become a smart city, so I'm telling my colleagues that if you go to a city, what are the things that would give you that immediate optic that this city is smart? So transport is number one. So arriving at the airport, whether that airport is smart. And we are doing things to make our Hong Kong International Airport smarter. And paying taxi fare is another thing. And all these transport information and so on. So we do need to catch up on the smart city aspects. But why do we need to catch up when on other things Hong Kong is very much at the forefront? Sometimes there is this saying that we are the victim of our own success because we are so convenient. We are so compact. So if you ask me why e-commerce is not as popular in Hong Kong as in other places, where e-banking is not as popular, it's because it's so convenient. So but now I can tell you we have a determination to go smart. We have a blueprint on smart city published last December. So all those practical issues, optical issues, we are addressing them.
Right. Carrie, when it comes to how Hong Kong wants to develop, what Hong Kong's priorities are. I'm sure a lot of people in the audience might have noticed yesterday was a very busy, chaotic, noisy day in our capital markets because it marked the first day of a new era when a company called Xiaomi listed at on the Hong Kong exchanges, on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange under a new dual class share system. There's this sense, there's this narrative out there that because of our history as a financial hub, we're trying to keep that going and we're trying to leverage that and we're trying to build on that and keep the finance, keep the banking going, but we're sometimes ignoring other things or other potential industries that Hong Kong could nurture. Do you buy into that? Do you agree with that at all?
Well, I certainly agree with that. Since you raised this issue of the new tech companies listing in Hong Kong and this first IPO, Xiaomi, I may as well give you a bit of background. Actually, we learned a lesson from this thing. We lost Alibaba's listing in Hong Kong, I think in 2014. We lost it to the New York Stock Exchange because in those days our listing rules did not allow for what we call the weighted voting rights, or somebody call it the dual class. And of course, from time to time, there are still discussions and noises made about, well, change your listing rules, update your listing rules to meet the needs of the new economy. But not until this term of a government started 1st of July, then we really displayed the needed determination to get this going. So we set up a financial leaders forum. So we brought together the regulators who are normally more prudent and the developers, that is the market developers, which are normally more aggressive, like the Stock Exchange and the Financial Services Development Council, and asked them to look at this issue once again. That is, without compromising investor protection, how could we make our listing rules more in time with the needed economy requirements? So after a period of consultation, we came up with the new listing rules on the 30th of April this year. And I'm very pleased that we have the first company. I'm sure it will be followed by other companies, not only in the tech side, because this new listing rules has three aspects. One is, of course, this new technology through the weighted voting rights. The other is a biotech company. We are allowing biotech companies to list in Hong Kong pre-revenue. That is even before they generate return. And the third is to promote companies that have listed abroad to come back for secondary listing. So I have a lot of hopes for this year's IPO that we'll do better. But coming back to your point is, because the world is changing, so if we want to stay competitive, especially to stay at the top, then we need to continuously revisit our rules and regulations to make sure that we can adapt to the new changes that have arisen.
Yeah. What we don't want to do in Hong Kong, though, is just attract the IPOs. We don't want to be just a stock trading hub. We want that brain power. We want that creativity. We want that spark to be here. And the story that I use as an example, and I might have it wrong, I might have my history wrong, but I've told it so many times, but the world's leading drone maker, DJI Technologies or something like that, was actually founded, if I'm not wrong, by somebody here in Hong Kong, in Clearwater Bay at the University of Science and Technology, but felt that they weren't getting enough support, that there wasn't that sort of base, there wasn't that sort of a nurturing environment, and they decided that for some reason, who knows why, that they were getting better support and that Shenzhen was a more natural home for them. We can't afford that sort of thing. If we have a creative idea, if we have a creative spark, a lot of young people come to this RISE conference. This conference gets bigger and bigger every year. What can we do to keep that talent here and not just get people networked to take the business outside and only consider us when they're ready for listing?
No, your reference to the case of this drone, the Dajiang business, exactly reflects Hong Kong's strengths. We are pretty strong in terms of basic research and also very good universities. The Clearwater Bay University is a very good university in science technology. But of course, to do translational research and application, you need more support. Whether we are providing for incubation support, we are providing for venture capital, providing for laboratory space to work from. So all these are now addressed in my package of proposals or strategies to grow Hong Kong's innovation and technology sector. For example, in hardware, they need space to work from. So we have a science park, which is embarking on a final expansion. But before Science Park is filled up, we are already committed to build a second Science Park, which is 3 times the size of the present Science Park. In terms of venture capital, the government also puts in our own money. We have a 2 billion venture capital fund to partner with private venture company so that they will be less risk averse in investing in startups and inventions and so on. Since Bernie mentioned that I'm talking to an audience who are all full of brain power, I may as well appeal to you that we welcome tech talents to work with us. So all the things that I have discussed about providing space, venture capital, research will be available to overseas talents coming to us. And we have introduced a tech talent admission scheme, which is a fast-track immigration arrangement for tech companies to recruit overseas and in the mainland. So once they have recruited, we'll give them a work visa to come in. And for those who are still in their PhD or post-PhD situation, we are giving direct grants to companies to create postdoctorate positions so that they can engage these tech talents. So I welcome you to join our innovation and technology sector. I can assure you it will be very exciting.
Carrie, one of the things that a lot of our, especially our overseas visitors, who are here for this conference may not be aware is that you very recently shook up a long-standing problem in Hong Kong, and that is the cost of just being in Hong Kong and the interests of the property market. And like so many cities before us, whether it be Singapore, whether it be Vancouver, Canada, you put in place basically encouragement to developers in the market to, don't hoard. Don't be hanging on to capacity. Get that capacity, meaning empty real estate, onto the market. Don't hang on to it for 6 months, 6 years, a decade, or whatever. You've really shaken up the market because all of a sudden they're all out there getting their inventory out on the market. How far are you going to go with this? Because there's a lot of industrial, unused, disused industrial real estate that's been sitting around waiting to be redeveloped that could actually be co-shared, by simply rezoning or rethinking how we can mobilize unused resources.
No, I would admit that land and space shortage is our current biggest deficiency. So whether it is for technology, for other economic activities, or for just meeting people's housing aspirations, the government needs to tackle this issue. So we have been making various efforts to address this issue. So the measure that Bernie has referred to is just to put in, not an encouragement, the developer said it is a penalty. A penalty for you to hold your flats instead of putting them onto the market by introducing a special rates that will be imposed if you keep your flat, first-hand flat vacant for a while, okay? But the important thing is, of course, to create more land. So we have a public consultation going on to create more land for Hong Kong through various measures like reclamation outside Victoria Harbour, maybe doing this and doing that. So that would be a very long-term strategy. But since you mentioned about industrial buildings, I was the official responsible for revitalizing Hong Kong's industrial buildings back in 2009. I introduced a policy that gave incentive for industrial buildings to transform into non-industrial uses, whether it's commercial or other things. So that policy has ended a year ago. So we are revisiting to re-trigger that policy so that the remaining industrial building stock in Hong Kong could also be transformed into some good uses. I'm going to visit one of the booths later on, and that wonderful project is in fact created under the policy because we don't charge any land premium for that transformation. It makes it easier and more attractive for the owners of industrial buildings to do good things, which are not making a lot of money, but they are good things like co-working spaces for startups, some studios for artists and designers. So we're happy to do more on that front.
I often, when people ask me, because I was covering the handover in 1997 at the stroke of midnight. It was, the biggest event for us in our generation. People ask me, what is different now versus then? And I tell them, the biggest difference is how the motherland, how China and the Hong Kong dynamic has changed. At that time, we made up my numbers. I'm really being liberal and taking liberty with the numbers here. But we made up something like 1/3 or 40% of the GDP of mainland China. In 20 years later, it's dropped into the low single digits because China has grown so rapidly. A lot of people out here hear the term Greater Bay Area. They're not quite sure what that means. Sometimes if they watch my show, they think I'm talking about San Francisco, and no, I'm absolutely not. I'm not talking about the San Francisco Bay Area. What is this going to mean for us in Hong Kong 5, 10, 20 years down the line? Are we going to be subsumed? Are we going to be smothered by everything all around us in China?
No, Bernie, I would like to think that the one big difference now and back then was you have a lady chief executive. We never have a lady governor in the whole of Hong Kong's history. So, but okay, coming back to a serious issue, the Bay Area, which is Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau. is an area with 68 million people, so it's as big as the United Kingdom, with a GDP of 1.5 trillion US dollar, which is as big as Australia. So it offers a lot of opportunities for us, for Hong Kongers and for overseas investors and startup working in Hong Kong, because now we have greater capacity. So we just talk about the case of Dajiang. Dajiang could continue to be researched and developed in Hong Kong. But when they need a manufacturing base, we can't do it in Hong Kong because we don't have land. So the other mainland cities in the Guangdong province, like Shenzhen, like Dongguan, like Zhongshan, will be able to provide that manufacturing capacity. And then when this business grows, they want to raise capital. Then they come back to Hong Kong for the new listing rules to raise capital. So this is a very self-contained good formula for doing innovation and technology. And also, it will be very exciting. I don't know, within this year, we are going to open 2 major pieces of cross-boundary infrastructure connecting Hong Kong to the Bay Area. So you can imagine from West Kowloon, it will take you 48 minutes by high-speed train to the city of Guangzhou, which is, of course, the capital of Guangdong province. If you only want to go to Shenzhen, it will be 20-something minutes. If you want to go to the western part of Guangdong, which is Zhuhai, through the bridge connecting from the Hong Kong island, the Hong Kong Lantau Island to Zhuhai, it will be 45 minutes. It's with that much reduced traveling time, or what we call a 1-hour living zone, we have plenty of opportunities to meet the needs of the economy, social development, and also the technology sector. So just watch out. We will have more to say about the Bay Area in the coming years. Because this is not a one-night thing. It will be a strategy at the national level to grow this Bay Area economy, just like the New York metropolitan area, the San Francisco Bay Area, the Tokyo Bay Area. I am very confident that with the needed policy support and the investment and the promotion, this Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Bay Area will be a major engine for economic growth in this region.
Carrie, I'm going to finish up here, and I know everybody's anxious for some sustenance and to get to lunch, but I want to finish off on a personal note here. In our time, and you and I catch up every few months, for a check-in, see how things are going. You seem to have embraced the job very, very passionately. You seem to be having a lot more fun doing it now. What you're talking about, the initiatives and all the ideas and all the visions that you highlighted today, how time has passed, you're not going to be able to do in one term. I got this feeling that your husband is going to have to tolerate Carrie in term 2, because one term, you're not going to get it done, and you won't feel like you've achieved what you need to do.
Well, how much my husband could tolerate is not something for me to say. Except that I can assure you, he does have a bit of tolerance, not being able to be with a wife for much of the time nowadays. But I just want to affirm that you are right. I'm enjoying my job. This job is to be enjoyed. If it is just a tough and hard and boring job, it's very difficult to drive me in many of the things I want to do for Hong Kong. So for those who want to come to Hong Kong, you can be assured that in the next 4 years, you will have a very energetic leader.
Carrie, on behalf of all the RISE participants, thank you for your time. I know you're busy from dawn to dusk, but we appreciate your giving us a good chunk of time today. Thank you.